Hi, everybody. Let's wait just another couple of minutes and because I think there's still some people arriving. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. David had something come up today. He's going to call in, but he's somewhere that he's not sure he's going to be able to speak very loudly. And so if he has to say anything, there could be sound in the background that he's but him trying to stay quiet. So we'll just wing it if that happens. So this is the agenda for today. So let's go ahead and get started. We've chosen a date for the learning session. It's going to be Thursday, May 29th, and this is the address. You're going to get these slides sent to you afterwards. This is where Tulsa C1 is housed. And so they have an auditorium in their building that we're going to use. And so we're excited about this, and we think it's only fair that we have, half of you are in Tulsa anyway, and so it's only, it wouldn't be fair to make you always come to Oklahoma City. Now, Tulsa C1 had an agency announcement about allowing only certain required travel. And so when they first heard that, they were nervous about whether they were going to even be able to come to the learning session. So this works out perfectly for them. Now, uh, I don't know if anybody else has concerns about travel and what's going to be allowed. I see that John's on the call, but he said Amanda was here to talk to us about that. Amanda?
I'll be able to speak about it,
Oh,
Lisa.
okay, John.
So basically, if there's any issues with travel, we understand there's certain travel restrictions, but at this time, this one for the Learning Collaborative is contractually obligated. So if there's any issues you all might have come across with your own agency, please let us know, and we can see what we can do to work that through.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Yeah, of course.
Um,
So you're saying, I mean, it can be a charge um to the grant, but if we don't have enough, you're saying there's a way of you're gonna let us know how to do that, or
Well, if there's not, so that's another issue. So there's different policies or different things at play. So certain agencies are being told that they can't travel at all. But if you all have issues on the budgeting aspect, please let us know that as well, and we can see what we can do on that end as well.
does anyone else have questions for John about this issue?
and we're not gonna have an option to do it virtually?
We're pretty much committed to going in person. That was the overwhelming preference of everybody.
Yes, this is Yolanda, and I need to check with my director because we have several layers of authorization. I mean, we're Oklahoma City Public Schools, so there is, to travel, I would say, out of, I mean, not state in this case, but out of Oklahoma City, we need different signatures in our, to see, and some of them even requirement leadership authorization. So I just gonna talk to my director.
Thank you. John, would it be possible for you to send out an email saying, and you could send it to me and I could distribute it if you want, saying that this is contractually obligated
Yeah, I can wordsmith
activity?
something. Yeah, I'll be
Because
happy
that might
to.
help people like Yolanda make the case. And and I don't know how it works with the costs. So
Yeah, I might have to check also my budgets because if each one individually goes and it's 15, 16 people, I know I'm not gonna be able to do it. So we'll have to have a plan. So um, you know, I will have to go and check the budgets first. When is the meeting?
it's May 29th, right? Can you see it on my screen?
Okay, I see it. Okay.
Yeah. Other questions, comments, concerns? Okay. Let's talk about the key drivers diagram just briefly. I'm going to be emailing it to everyone as promised before we start the April rounding calls so that we can start picking out what your change idea is going to be. And you've seen this before. I may have moved things around just a little bit on the slide. But our overall goal is improving home visitor professional well-being. And these are the primary drivers we identified. And these are the secondary drivers that we believe influence things like, like if you can balance home visits with data entry demands, we can see how that would reduce burnout and improve professional well-being. So the difference now is that instead, on the next slide, it was a very crowded slide with change ideas. I've broken that up across a couple of slides so that it'd be easier to read. And you'll be able to see this better when I send it to you. But these are the secondary drivers, a few of them from that previous slide. And these are change ideas. And we've organized this a little bit better. And so I'll leave that up for just a minute so you can, I think this is going to look familiar to you from what we already discussed in the March rounding calls.
And I'll chime in and add that the change ideas you see in bold font, if you're able to see that, those are ones which we believe are good candidates for your first PDSA in this current cycle of continuous quality improvement. So these are ones we are suggesting. You'll notice there are some change ideas that are not bolded that we recognize would require more resources from us and that we want you to be aware of as ideas we're interested in. And that might come through, not through the CQI arm of our work together, but through another source of MCV funding with our coordinated state evaluation.
Or there's a possibility that we'll be able to get something set up for a future phase of CQI.
Yes.
Thank you, Tabitha. I'd forgotten to mention that. So I'll show you the last one here. Does anybody have any comments or questions about what you're seeing? I'll get these to Lisa so that she can send it along with the slides from today's presentation. So you'll have it in two places. You'll have a separate a PowerPoint, but then you'll have it in this PowerPoint. Now, we have some funding from the Oklahoma Partnership for School Readiness, OPSR, and this is for sustaining some of the work we did on the innovation project. And particularly, it was about referrals related to Sooner Start. We had a meeting with OPSR, and they approved a plan to continue working on referrals, but not just for Sooner Start, but for any developmental services like um, what are some of the others? The child health. Um, you know what your agencies are that you refer children to for developmental services. And Elizabeth is going to go through reports for your agency, and we'll be pulling that data. And she's going to be looking at those referrals for those kinds of services. And she's going to look for whether there's any holes in the information that was recorded. And she's going to try to fill in as many holes as she can. And then she's going to meet with you and report back. So you may have a request from her for an additional meeting once she gets into this work. Now, she also plans, we plan to continue the focus on client experiences with referrals. And we're also interested in your ideas for changes in referrals in general or to other services. So if you have ideas about changing anything about the way referrals are made or recorded, let us know. One idea that's being batted around is combining the referral forms that are in ETO so that all of the information is in one place. So you wouldn't have a referral tracking for when they create the referral and then a separate form for follow-up. Those would be in one place. And if we end up going in that direction, Elizabeth is going to be able to go through the referrals and make sure each referral has all the information recorded in one place. Does that make sense to you? Questions or comments about
Is
these
she going
ideas?
to get into ETO and look for the follow-up and everything?
Yes, she's going to be looking at everything. She's going to do everything she can by looking through ETO.
And consulting with you all to
Right,
streamline the process.
right. Because we want it to be helpful. We don't want to be throwing big old wrenches into your work. Other comments, questions? Okay. Now LaShonda's going to be helping with that work too. I didn't include that on the slide. We're going to be continuing some of the other work we started with focus groups, and so you'll be hearing more about that as we go along. We'll keep you updated on a regular basis. Now, the coordinated state evaluation, separate from CQI, we do an evaluation on projects. And so we have simultaneously with your CQI, we're going to have this coordinated state evaluation where we're working in parallel with other states who also are interested in workforce development. And the states in our group have chosen these two questions to investigate. So, what workforce support strategies are used to support professional well-being? And are workforce supports associated with professional well-being? So, there could be a strategy that's been undertaken, but maybe it's not having an effect, or maybe it's having a big effect. Maybe that effect is positive or negative. That's what we want to find out. And these are very generally worded questions. And And that allows each state to sort of tailor it to their needs and their interests. And so um, there's going to be because there's going to be things that are unique to MCV. When I worked for the Oklahoma Healthcare Authority, we used to say, if you've seen one Medicaid program, you've seen one Medicaid program. Because every state is so different when it comes to Medicaid and what they have. And I think the same is true with MCV. It's going to be unique to Oklahoma. So we'll have to be tailoring our work to make sure it's addressing questions that are of interest and of help to you. Now, our next step in the coordinated state evaluation is that we're going to choose some measures that all the states will use. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have different questions completely but we're going to be using the same measures. That doesn't make sense. These are addressing those questions that were on the previous slide about workforce support strategies and professional well-being. And we've been looking at a large number of measures that we could use that would help us measure something about professional well-being. And I've pulled up 3 examples, and they have their different strengths and weaknesses, and I have my favorites among them. Uh, and these are 3 of the scales under consideration. The Early Childhood Job Satisfaction Survey identifies 3 domains: coworker relations, supervisor relations, and the work itself. And so here are some example items. Someone will be asked to rate this statement: I feel encouraged and supported by my colleagues, and my supervisor cares about my work, and my work gives me a sense of accomplishment. Now, to be a positive person, as I try to be, I chose the positively worded items. But in scale development, which is what my PhD was about, we often will have negatively worded items like, my supervisor doesn't see, I'm making this up, my supervisor doesn't seem to understand what I do. That would be a negatively worded item. So if somebody was asked to rate that on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is strongly disagree and 10 is strongly agree, somebody may disagree with the statement, my supervisor doesn't seem to know what I do, and say a 3. Well, if it's a 1 to 10 scale, to make all the responses indicating more satisfaction, then they'd have to turn that around. So a 1 would be recoded as a 10. Because if somebody strongly disagrees with that statement, they're going to be more satisfied with their job because they're going to feel like their supervisor does care, does understand what they do. So a 2 would become a 9, a 3 would become an 8, and so forth. So that's why, and the reason is we don't want to be asking questions in a pattern that has an expectation that people are feeling I'm supposed to be saying positive things. And if you give them an opportunity to say something, agree with a statement like, my supervisor doesn't seem to know what I'm doing, they may be really glad to have that opportunity to kind of have agreement, still saying something positive, but it means the opposite. So it helps keep respondents from falling into a pattern of answers and gives them an opportunity to express a full range of feelings about these kinds of statements. Now, the Early Childhood Professional Well-Being Scale, I think, was a little more thoroughly thought out and tested. Here's the theoretical idea. I'm sure everybody's heard of Maslow's model, where at the base, the physiological needs of a person have to be met. And the assumption is that unless you're getting food and drink, then you're not going to be able to care about anything else above it. Now, there's all sorts of argument about whether this is true, whether you can't feel love at the same time that you're having physiological concerns. Of course you can, because that love may be for your child's physiological concerns. But the idea is as you support each of these layers, you're able to go towards self-actualization. And these researchers came up with 9 senses of well-being, and this was based on work with early childhood professionals. And so they came up with these things that mapped onto Maslow's model. And so this is their model, that feeding into early childhood professional well-being here in the center are all of these senses, a sense of affinity, a sense of agency, a sense of engagement, that those things are contributing to early childhood professional well-being. So here are some example items. For the sense of engagement, my work challenges me to think. For sense of contribution, I am trusted to take on important tasks. For sense of self-respect, I am accepted for who I am. So that's another scale we're considering. And the third one is called the PERMA profiler. P standing for positive and negative emotions, E engagement, R relationships, M meaning, and A accomplishment. So here are some example questions from that scale, which also seems to have a good amount of literature behind it. That's one of the things we're looking at is what's the research? Did somebody just kind of make this up, or did they collect some data and study it and refine it, try to make it a validated measure? So some example questions. At work, how often do you become absorbed in what you're doing? So those are questions about flow, about that engagement in the work. How satisfied are you with your professional relationships? And to what extent is your work purposeful and meaningful? And that's an aspect that I think a lot of people are interested in. It's not just how well we do the work, and it's not just how well we get along, but how meaningful this is really gets to a motivating factor for staying on a job. If you felt like your job was worthless and meaningless, it, you wouldn't have as much motivation to stay and keep making things better. So, any questions or comments about these scales? Okay. So where things stand now with coordinated state evaluation, we have to finish writing our evaluation plan by late May. And frankly, there's very little written at this point. So we will be scrambling a little bit. But there was a lot we couldn't do because we hadn't even gotten to the point of knowing what our shared questions were. And that's sort of the umbrella over what we're going to do within the state of Oklahoma. So the first phase of our evaluation will involve information gathering. And that will involve both quantitative measures like these scales that I just showed you, which have rankings for each statement, and those produce quantitative scores, numeric scores, and qualitative data, which is the rich description that gives us more about the story that we're trying to tell. And Tabitha, would you like to say more about qualitative data research? Because I'm purely quantitative.
Sure. Yeah. So we are hoping through the qualitative data to uplift the voice of our home visiting staff to share what they feel contributes to their well-being. We have a number of innovative ways we might go about that that I'm excited about that you will hear about down the line as we uh, formally and finalize that evaluation plan. But just be aware, absolutely we'll be including the staff perspective on what it means to have well-being and job satisfaction and what's contributing to burnout.
Yeah, when you do qualitative research, often it's things like focus groups or individual interviews where you don't have it spread out across a lot of people, but it's very deep and it gets into a lot of that depth or thickness of the data is important. Quantitative data tends to be across more people, but it's thin. It doesn't get very deep. You get scores for these ratings on items, but that doesn't tell the whole story. That's why these mixed method approaches, where we include both quantitative and qualitative aspects, really help to tell the whole story that we're trying to tell. And when I say tell the story, that's based on what we gather, the information we gather. What we're learning is the story. So it's not like we're coming in with an idea of what your story is and coming up with something to support that. It's completely the opposite. We're gathering the information and then saying, based on this, this is what we're seeing. This is what the story is. Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
I would just add to that, given the sensitive nature of discussing job satisfaction and burnout, I strongly anticipate these will be individual interviews rather than focus groups for this particular evaluation.
Thank you. Yolanda.
Yes, I'm a little confused. So this evaluation, and it kind of would go with the, we always do a presentation in the Learning Collaborative. What is going to be what we present? Is going to be like a slide? Because I mean, so far we don't have any data. So I don't know, this is a different thing that the presentation that we have to do.
Right. Next month, we're going to be, well, next month starting tomorrow, um, we're going to be having our rounding calls and we're going to start choosing what your
Okay.
change idea is going to be and talking about how would you go about answering that question. And so we'll start coming up with some of the things that you'll need to put um, on the PDSA form. And that's something we'll complete at the learning session. And so then you may speak briefly. We haven't come up with our agenda yet for the learning session, but I suspect we'll ask each organization to come up and talk about what their change idea is going to be and their ideas for investigating that change.
Okay. It's going to be a PowerPoint included, or do you know?
No, I don't think you're
Uh,
going to have to create a PowerPoint.
just the PDSA. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Uh-huh.
the clarification.
Yes, you bet.
So each team gonna have the opportunity to choose also the measurement, or you guys are gonna select the questions that will be asked according to the change idea that we have?
You're going to decide.
Okay.
Yeah, the scales I showed you are for our part, the evaluation that we do about workforce development that's running parallel to the CQI. And so when you choose a change idea, you're going to be choosing how to measure things.
Okay.
We did, I'll say for two of them, give you three questions to ask in an open-ended format. So if you might have noticed that two of the change ideas had sub-bullets, 1, 2, 3, here are questions to ask your staff. So those are provided to you. But otherwise, as you've done in previous PDSAs, you will work alongside your analysts and decide how you want to answer that question. The measures Lisa had just shown you, again, are for this parallel evaluation that's separate.
Thank you.
But it's on the same topic, so I see how that's very confusing.
Yeah, that is. It is. That's why I was really trying to explain what CSE stood
Yep.
for, that coordinated state evaluation.
Yeah, which you did a beautiful job of. We just have a lot of overlap and a lot of acronyms.
It's taken me a while to get used to it.
Right.
Other comments or questions? Okay, that's the end of the slideshow. I think you were supposed to talk about the diagram, the key drivers diagram, and I just blew right past you there. Sorry about that, Tabitha.
No worries, you presented it well.
Thank
And
you.
I can't take credit. You did a lot of the overhaul on that. So
Oh, well, thank you. I think it was a joint effort. Um, does anybody have any concerns or questions that you would like to bring up at this time? Okay. Well, I have, over 25 years of teaching statistics, I learned that people never complain when a meeting ends early. So it's not like you're being shortchanged, you're being given something extra. So we'll go ahead and call it a day. And thanks very much for everybody's participation and presence. I'll see you in the rounding calls. Bye bye.
and we'll be excited to see you at the in-person learning session in May.